Good morning, everybody. As we go to the chitas of today, we're holding in the portion of Vayikra, the sixth portion, the sixth part of the portion, Aliyah Shishis. We're holding on chapter 4, verse number 1. So this is what's called the portion of the Karban Chatas, the sin offering that a Jew would bring if he did a sin unintentionally. And as the Gemara says, I mentioned yesterday, the Gemara says, whoever reads this, whoever learns this, is if he's brought a karban chatas. So it's an important thing to learn this, and because by learning this, you actually are bringing this karban. And God spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Jewish people, Lamer, saying, Nefesh kisechta, if a person will sin bishgaga, unintentionally, if any commandment that the Torah says you should not do, do a negative commandment. Rashi says again, our rabbis explain that the sin offering is only brought on sins that you would have done it, God forbid, intentionally. You would get the punishment, God forbid, of kares, that you cut off from God. And give the example of chametz and Pesach. Chametz on Pesach, that if you get kares, God forbid, chametz on Pesach, and the Torah. So therefore, here you have this mitzvah. If you did it, if you God forbid a person ate chametz unintentionally, he would bring a karban chatas. Ma'achas me'ena. Now it says ma'achas indicates me'achas. When it says a mem, then it's from, not all. And for the example, Rashi gives the example, or a case of a Shabbos, Shem Shimon, Noach Minochar. So if you do it again, you don't do the whole Aveda. You don't do part. Oops, I'm learning the wrong portion. We continue. I'm sorry. I started Thursday. Then it continues. I thought I knew because we learned that Rashi already. Okay, we're holding on chapter 4, verse number 27. Continue the same law, the explanation of yesterday. If somebody will do a mitzvah by mistake, unintentionally, that'll sin, he'll transgress any passive commandment he's not allowed to do. V'ashem, and V'ashem will realize his mistake. Or if his sin that he committed is made known to him. He'll bring his sacrifice. Siras izim tamima. He'll bring his sacrifice, an unblemished female goat. Nekeva al chatosa shachata, on the sin that he has done. Verse 29. V'samach yadei al reisha chatas, and he'll put his hand upon the head of this karban chatas. V'shachaz achatas u'makam eila, and he will slaughter this animal in the place that he brings the oila, which usually is in the north side of the mizbeach. And the kohen will take from its blood be'etzrei with his fingers, but nasan kindness mizbeach, and he'll put it upon the corners of the mizbeach ha'oila, of the mizbeach of the burnt offering. Put it on the corners. As kol dama, and the rest of the blood yishpeich ayisei the mizbeach, and the rest of the blood he will sprinkle it. He will pour it on the foundation of the mizbeach, which goes into the ground. Verse 31. As kol chel beyaser, and he'll take off all the fats. The fats which he took off from the offering of the peace offering. And the kohen will bring it all on the mizbeach. L'reich nechoyach, has a pleasing smell. Hashem, to God, people of HaKohen, and God, and the kohen will bring forgiveness to him. V'nislach lo, and he will be forgiven. Now she says, like the designated parts of the goat that were stated regarding the peace offering. Verse 32. Kevis over karbonei lachatas, if he brings a sheep for his sin offering. The keva tamima needs to be a female's offering, a female animal. Yevien tamima has to be unblemished. Some chatas, he puts his hand upon the head of the chatas. And he brings it for the sake of a carbon chatas. The same place where he shechted the oil, he would shecht this carbon. Now she says again, the Torah says, "V'shachat eisel lachatas." He should bring it for chatas. That means shetehei shchitas l'shem chatas. That you have to, when you bring a carbon, it has to be shechted. When the time is shechted, it has to be slaughtered for the sake of this mitzvah, for the sake of a carbon chatas, for a sin offering and not for anything else. Verse 34, and the Kohen will take from the blood of the sin offering. That's way with his finger. And he's going to put it on the horns of this mizbeach, oil of the mizbeach of the animal mizbeach. It's called dama, and then the rest of the blood, yishpech, you say the mizbeach. The rest of the blood he pours on the foundation of the mizbeach. Verse 35, it's called chelba yasser. Again, he takes off all the fats. We're talking the fats that was brought on the mizbeach, was burnt. The same thing what he did, all the fats that he took off from the peace offering. And the kohen would bring it all on the mizbeach, al isha Hashem, on the fire of God. The chipur of kohen. And the kohen will bring forgiveness al chatase and his sin, asher chata, which he sinned, v'nislach le'el will be forgiven. Now she says, for its designated part, again, when it comes to a sheep, the sheep had an extra fat, and that was the fat of the tail, the fat of its tail. Chatas kishiba kivsa. So too the same thing when a chatas it was born, but a sheep it requires a tail. The tail had to be offered, the fats of the tail had to be offered with the other designated parts. Al Yisha Hashem, what is that meaning? Upon the fire made by God. In French, it's called foyeras. Chapter 5, verse number 1. Nefesh kisachta, from the soul will sit, v'shama kala Allah, and having heard a curse, being a witness by virtue of having seen or having known, who aid or ira, what happened, or yada, v'im lo yagid, and if he doesn't testify, v'nasa aveinai, and he'll carry that his transgression. What does that mean? This is regarding the matter where the witness, Rashi says, meaning that one of the litigants made him take an oath that if he knows a testimony, he will testify for him. So here a person made a vow, Rashi says, talking about a person made a vow, and it was a false vow. It's a lie. Made a vow in God's name that he's going to testify, and he doesn't testify. So he made a vow, and now it's a false vow. Nefesh or soul, if a soul, if a human being touches a dead animal, or it would be a carcass of a spiritually defiled wild animal, or a carcass of a spiritually defiled crawling animal, or he touched a dead crawling animal, a dead rat, vanilla mena, and he forgot that he was tummy. He touched all these things that make him tummy, and he forgot that he was tummy. V'hu made a mistake. He was guilty. What was he guilty with? You're not guilty of becoming tummy. There's no sin to become tummy unless you're a kohen. But if you're not a kohen, you can become tummy. So the problem over here is that he became tummy, not realizing that his tummy is impure by touching these dead animals, and he walks into the Beis Hamikdash. That's the problem. Or if he's a kohen and he eats holy, or if he's a regular Jew and he eats from a carbon. That's the problem, as Rashi says. And after he touches, after he becomes pure, he didn't realize he's impure. And after this ritual defilement, he eats sacrificial food or enters the sanctuary, which if he had done intentionally, that's kares. You cut off from God. If you go impure into the temple, you're kares to kares. God says you cut off from the Jewish nation. I mean, you get kares. God says, I'm gonna punish you with kares. You're gonna chas shalom. Person will die before his time. So shudavish is doing the kares again in Masechtas Shvuos. Niddishkan is all explained in the Gemara in Masechtas Shvuos. Menelam imeno means that he did not know the fact that he was defiled. He didn't know that he touched the carcass. He didn't know that he touched the dead animal. V'ashem. But then he realizes, somebody told him, somebody comes and tells him, you know that you're impure. You touched something that was impure, now you're impure. He says, oh, I went to the Beit HaMikdash yesterday. So now he did an Aveda unintentionally. And he was guilty, whether he knew it or he didn't know it. He's still guilty. He still did something that's prohibited. So a person that is tummy and goes into Beit HaMikdash, he didn't realize he's tummy. He's impure. So then he goes into Beit HaMikdash. Now he realized that he is impure. So now he did an Aveda. So by eating sacrificial food or by entering the sanctuary. Verse number 3. Or if this person came in contact with a dead body. So he went to a funeral. And he came in contact, he was in the building with a dead body. The whole tumah or any other impurity that makes a person impure. And he forgot about it, or he didn't remember, or he didn't know that he was in a room with a dead person. Now he's told. And now v'ashem, and he made him by mistake. He realized he went to the Beit HaMikdash, or he ate only food. Tumas Adam Zut Tumas Mace. This is the highest level of impurity, is Tumas Mace, by coming Tomei from a dead, God forbid, a dead person. So going into a funeral, for example, where if you go to the funeral building and you go into the funeral, everybody who's in that room where the casket becomes Tumas Mace. Surely if you touch it. The whole tumas, these words are included in ritual defilement occurred by touching a man or a woman of an abnormal discharge. There's also the laws of zav and zava. So if a woman or a man has a dischargeal of fluid from the body, these are very hard laws. You have to know the laws of zav and zava. We don't really know the discharge colors of these things. So, but if you touch that person, so the person himself who has the discharge becomes impure, and a person who touches him becomes impure. Asher Yitma, these words add to include the case of one who touches a man who had marital relations with one who's with a woman during her menstrual separation. So, God forbid, a man had a relationship with a woman that was a nida, he becomes impure, and anybody who touches him becomes impure. Vinelam, you should realize how many ways a person can become impure. It's not unusual that people would become impure. Shaking somebody's hand that's impure will make you impure. Vinelam, again, this means that he then became unaware and he forgot about his ritual defilement. So he doesn't when it wasn't. He shakes somebody's hand. Didn't know that the person was impure. The guy didn't tell him, Shalom Aleichem, I'm tummy. So he shook his hand. And then the next day, the guy tells him, oh, I heard you went to the Beit HaMikdash. Well, you got a problem because you shook my hand yesterday and I was tummy. And now you went to the Beit HaMikdash in tummy. Again, v'ashem, you incurred guilt. Why don't you tell me when I shouldn't shake your hand? You should have maybe told me I shouldn't shake your hand. You're tummy, and I can't shake your hand. So therefore, nobody's here is blaming anybody, but ultimately you realize I made a mistake. It's not the mistake of shaking your hand. The mistake was going into the Beit HaMikdash. That was the problem. Shaking the hand is not the end of the world. So you have to go to the mikveh, and we both have to go to the mikveh and make sure we become pure. But if you didn't tell me, and I went into the Beis Hamikdash thinking that it's all right, and now now you tell me that I shouldn't have gone to visit the Beis Hamikdash yesterday. Whether it's I made a mistake by eating holy sacrificial food, or the Beis Hamikdash, I went to the sanctuary. Or if a man swears, pronouncing with his lips his intention to harm himself or to do good to either himself or to others. He makes vows. He makes a vow. I'm not eating any more bread. That means to harm yourself. I'm not going to eat bread anymore. And then he eats bread. Regarding good, a person says, I'm only going to eat bread. I'm eating bread every day. So any event concerning which a man makes a vow and a celebration of oath took place. And again, he didn't realize that swearing would obligate him to offer up a sacrifice. And later he's informed and he incurs guilt in this way. Now she says, but not, he made an oath with his lips, but not with his heart. But not if he made the oath only with his heart. He has to say it with his lips. If you make vows in your heart, it's not considered a vow. A vow is when a person says it with his mouth. La to harm himself, or lehetiv, or to do good to himself. For example, he says, I will eat, or I will not eat. I will sleep, or I will not sleep. L'cholashi is bata. In any event concerning which a man may make an assertion, these words are added to include any oath made referring to the past. I make an oath that I've never eaten bread. And it escapes him means he can consequently violated the oath. In all these cases, one brings an offering of varying value. This is called an Oshem Toli. In accordance to one means that it's a Oshem Oil. It depends how much your capability is, as described here. Called the Oshem Carbon Oil V'Yored. It's a carbon, not Oshem Tali. Carbon Oil V'Yored. It's a you see the Hebrew words of it. Carbon Oil V'Yored. It's an offering that goes up or down. So according to described here in the Parsha, however, an oath that involves forced denial of monetary claim does not incur this offering, but a guilt offering. There's Oshem, Carbon Oshem. So again, you have carbon chatas, carbon Oshem, carbon oil of a many different carbonas that we have in this week's Parsha. Verse number 5. If when it occurs guilt on any of these cases which the Torah mentioned, mizvada shachata aleh, he must make confess the sins that he committed. And he brings his guilt offering to God. Achata on the sin that he has done, the keva. He is to bring a female animal, minatzayim from the flock, kizva a season, whether it's a sheep or a goat, lachatas for a sin offering, and the kohen were forgiven from the sin that they've done. Verse number 7, they said if he doesn't have enough money for a seh, then he brings either 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Hashem to God, echad lachatos, 1 pigeon is for a sin offering, ve'echad lo'ila, 1 is for the burnt offering. Verse number 8, he brings both of these pigeons to the kohen. First he brings the bird for the sin offering. And he does the shchita from the back of the neck. He doesn't sever the head completely. We mentioned this before. Rashi says, from here we learn a law in general, that chatas kodim la'ila, that a sin offering precedes an oila, a sending offering. Lamar Davadema, the Gemara says, to what may be compared to an advocate who enters to appease the king. Once the advocate has appeased an affected pardon, a gift is brought. It reinstates the offender in the favor of the king. So first he brings the chatas. He asks the king, God, king of all kings, forgiveness. And then he gives the oila as a gift, so to say, that comes after the chatas. V'lei yavdil. Ash says he slits only one organ, either the trachea or the esophagus, and it's all in the Gemara Chulin. Oidef, what's the oidef? The upper point of the back of the head that is slopes down towards the front of the neck. Mul erpoi, mul oidef is the opposite part of that is in the side of the oidef, the entire length of the back of the neck. It's called an oidef. Verse number 9. And then he dashes from the blood of the sin offering on the wall of the altar. And again, if there's any leftover blood, he puts it, I press in the base of the altar. Chatas, this is a carbon chatas. Now she says he must dash some blood on the sin offering. In the case of the of oila, the case of the ascent offering, the oila, the Torah requires only pressing out the blood. But regarding the sin offering, it requires a dashing and pressing out. How the dashing was done, he holds the neck of the fowl and causes the blood to spurt out. And it continues to spurt as far as the altar. Chatasu, again, Rashi says, from these extra words we infer that the procedure is done with a proper intent. That it is sin, that it is a sin offering, it is valid. But if it's done with a different intent, it's not valid. All has to be done, what's called in the Torah lishma. It has to be done for the right reason, intention. Here we see that the Torah is important, the concept of intention. It's not to bring a carbon, whatever it is, it is. A carbon needs to be brought not only by the owner with the intent, but also by the kohen that's bringing the carbon has to have the intent for this. So that means the kohen has to be focused when he does a certain carbon that he knows what this carbon is for, because he can bring you many carbonas. There's a lot of action going on. People are bringing chatas, bringing shlomim, people. There's many different sacrifices that are going on in one time. The kohen, and there's blood, and there's all these things that he brought out the mizbeach. So therefore, the kohen needs to be focused when he does this, that he knows what the carbon is for, what he's shechting it for, what he's bringing the blood for, what is he doing. He has to have kavanah in everything that he does. He has to have intent and know what he's doing, because if not, it's not valid. It's invalid. And the guy, and what makes the difference is valid. It means the guy has to do carbon again. The kohen says, "I'm sorry, I thought I mixed up between the carbonas and I brought yours. You brought me a chatas, but I brought it as a shlomim." And the other guy said, the other guy brought it as a shlomim, I brought it as a chatas. Both of us need to go and bring another carbon. And we need to do it again. So it needs to be done with kavana. That's why there's certain things in davening. Davening is carbonas. We have to have the intent. If you don't do it, you got to do it again. The second bird he brings up as a carbon oila, kamishpat, like the laws of a carbon oila. The kohen will bring forgiveness for the sin that he has done, ashachata, which he has sinned, and he will be forgiven. According to the ordinance, according to the law, meaning according to law stated regarding a voluntary ascent offering. A noila that was given by a Jew did it voluntarily, and that is mentioned already in the beginning of this week's Parsha. So a lot of these laws, we learn a lot of the things that I mentioned throughout as you're reading the Torah, this week's Parsha. You have to remember what you have learned before in the beginning of the Parsha, where the Torah talks about the Torah actually starts off this week's Parsha with a carbon oila, a carbon that was brought totally on the Mizbeach, called an oila. It's ascending a sacrifice. It was totally ascended to heaven. And that completes the Chumash for today. day. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We are finishing the 38th chapter in Tanya. So the Alter Rebbe now goes on to discuss the two levels in Kavanah. The higher one, which is comparable to the soul of man, and the lower one, which is compared to the soul of animal, right? So we mentioned that all based on the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Yud Hey Vav Hey, the God's name, tetragram of God's name. So we have Doimim Tzemeach Chai Medaber. We divided it into four categories of the creation of the world. Doimim Tzemeach is the first two levels, the lower levels in creation, inanimate objects and vegetation, which is Vav Kei. And then we had the Chai Medaber, and the concept of the animal and humans, which is the first two letters. Now, in the man itself, we explained that we have this concept, just like we have it in the world, we have it in man. So we have the concept of doimim and tzemeach is action and speech. So those are the two lower levels in a human being, and then you have the upper two levels, and that is the concept of machshava, concept of thought of man, the third garment. But within thought itself, we have two levels of thought. We have two levels in kavanah itself, in machshava. We have the higher, which is compared to the soul of man, and we have the lower, which is the machshava that's compared to the soul of an animal soul, my vital soul. And that's the two levels, the Yud Kei, the two levels, the Yud Kei, Yud and the Hey of God's name. One is the Hey, is the lower level, that shows on Bina, and really the Yud shows on Chachma. So these are the two levels between my brain, is Chachma and Bina. Ava Aim in Kabbalah, the masculine, the feminine, father and the mother, Chachma and Bina of Machshava. It's Chabad, Dalid, the Chabad, the Das is the connector. So you have Chochmah Bina, and then Das connects everything to the Vav Kei. The Vav is a Shisha Midas, and then ultimately Malchus, the Hey, is the lower level, the lowest level, the concept of creation, action. So Machshava is thought, understanding. So within my machshava, my thought, I have two levels: the level of the level of wisdom, and the level of bina, understanding. The first level is a person who has the capability. He has his mind is refined. Daita yafa, his mind is refined to know God, to meditate. There are certain people, hopefully all of us, have the capability through learning Torah, through our learning, we refined the mind. We made our mind broader. We opened up our mind, and we gave the capability for our mind to be able to meditate on godliness. And what is our purpose of this meditation? Because he wants to create something. That's das. He wants to create something. He wants to create from his meditation. He wants to create a higher level of fear of God. As we learn in Chassidus, you can create a lower level of fear, which is basically the fear of God, retribution, or you could create a higher level of fear, which is embarrassment, which is much more humbling experience. The embarrassment, the humility. That's we're trying to create humility, which is a concept of fear, but it's a humbling experience. In his mind, and he's trying to create a love of God. In the right side of his heart. So we're trying to create a higher level of fear and a higher level of love of God. What's the higher level of love of God? Lias nafshi tzmeya, that my heart is thirsty for God. I don't love God because what he does or what he created. I love God because I need him. My love is based on the concept of the need, that I am in need of this aspect. And that is Tzama. That's the expression of David HaMelech, who said, I am thirsty for God. Because I want to cleave to God. I want this relationship. I am in thirst of this relationship. But ultimately is, how do I show this love and fear of God? It ultimately needs to come into action. It needs to be done. That's the way I do the mitzvah. So therefore, we need to bring everything together. Ultimately, everything needs to come together. The concept of my understanding, to the concept of my feeling, to the concept of my action. This is the whole concept of the illumination of the infinite light of God. Al nafshe, on my soul. Which what happens, this revelation of God comes on my soul, which one may cleave to him. So in other words, this person desired to cleave to God through the only means of doing so, meaning to Torah mitzvahs. That's the only way that I can cleave to God. If I do any other way cleaving to God, it's in my mind. It's not really, I'm cleaving to my mind. To be able truly to cleave to God is by following a mitzvah. There's no other way to cleave to God. That's why people make that mistake. You say, I love God. No, the Eibishter wants you to ladafka. He wants to have that the concept of a relationship with God. That there's a concept of me becoming part of God. Not that you love God. Not that you just fear God. Not that you just meditate on God. Because that ultimately can be all self. Because what do you comprehend about God? It's all your comprehension or my comprehension of God. It's ultimately about myself. I want to cleave to God. I want a relationship with God. Now, how can I have a relationship with God if not by a mitzvah? There's no other way of having a relationship with God. Any other way, even thought, even the concept of brain or emotion, is having a relationship with yourself. So if I say, like example, I love you, but I don't have anything to do with you, I still love you. I love you, but I don't really want to do anything for you. But I love you. No, I love you. Therefore, I'm going to be there for you. I want a relationship with you. These relationships can be on many different levels. Just like another human being, we can have a relationship with another human being, emotionally, spiritually, in a way also. But ultimately, this concept needs to become into an aspect of dibur and action, these two levels. That's why these two concepts, the low two levels, are important in this relationship, because I have to say to God, I love him. That's the concept of prayer or learning Torah with my mouth. And ultimately, with the concept of a mitzvah. And that's the way we do it. That's the way it's done. There's no other way of doing a relationship between two people or between me and God. If not, that ultimately that this love and this feeling is going to come out through speech and through action. So that's the important thing. Ultimately, it stems from the love and the awe of God created by the intellect. So ultimately, how, that's like again, my relationship with another human being, how is it going to be revealed? Is the way I understand you and the way I feel for you. If I'm just want to get you off my back, so I just do it and then leave me alone. But if I have a passion towards it, if I have enjoyment towards it, because I understand what I'm doing, and I understand who you are, and and I want to fulfill your needs, it's a whole different reality. It's a whole different relationship. That's the difference to where we learned before. Somebody who does something face to face, and somebody does something from the back. Okay, I did it. I got to do it. I have to do it, so I do it. No, I want to do it. And when a person wants to do something, because he understands it, he comprehends this aspect, comprehends the importance of it, it's a whole different reality. You cannot compare the two, even though the person that receives it is going to get it anyway. The Gemara says a person that gives somebody else charity, he gets a mitzvah. But when he gives that person charity, I'm a faisai, he uplifts that person. He gives him a smile. He gives him a good word. Gives him a hug. Tells him it's going to be okay. I know I'm helping you, but the Mitzvah Hashem, God's going to help you, and you're going to get through this. That is much more. It can be 11 mitzvahs that you get. So it's a whole different reality, even though the person's getting the same object, he's getting the same dollar, but it's a whole different dollar. It's a whole different mitzvah. It's a whole different reality. So too, when it comes to relation with God, it's a whole different reality. If I have a chavas hadas, if I learn Torah, if I comprehend what I'm doing, if I understand why I'm doing it, if I understand why the whole concept over here is the relationship with the Eibishter, is with the relationship that I want with God. So it's kavanah in mitzvahs, his desire to cleave to God through mitzvahs. Then he realized that the mitzvah is only the vehicle. The soul of the mitzvah is the cleaving to God. That's the real thing. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. And the Baruch Hashem, that's why we say in davening every day, Baruch Hu l'zakay says Yisrael. The Eibishter wanted to give Yidden so many schusim, so many ways to connect to him. Therefore he gave him 613 commandments and all its connection and mitzvahs. Torah gave him Torah, no better way to connect him than to Torah. Thus, as an intellectual basis. And with this kavanah, it's only when he studies the Torah and fulfilling the mitzvah, with this kavanah that he wants to connect to God, he wants to use these tools as the greatest connection that he can do to God. So too, when I go to daven, when I go to pray, what I want to do? I want to get over it, or I want to connect to God. That's my kavanah. My kavanah is I want to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's no better way to come to connect to God than through my prayers, through my speech. When I'm making a bracha. So when you recite the blessing with the kavanah to cleave to God, to come a connection to God, whose greatness he has come to understand. He understands why he wants to cleave to God, because God is his creator, God is his essence, God is everything. So this kavanah, such a kavanah, is an analogy It's like the analogy to the soul of the human being. Who possesses intelligence and freedom of choice, and who speaks with wisdom. That's what it does. That's why there's no true freedom. Eibishter wants it to be you. I want freedom. I don't want you to be forced to say these words. I don't want you to be forced to do this mitzvah. I want that you should want to do the mitzvah. You're doing the mitzvah with your own freedom, with your own free will, because you comprehend this concept. You realize the importance of this aspect, the importance it is to God, the importance it is to me. It is equally as important to God as it is important to me, because I'm fulfilling God's wish of creation. So it's important, it says in Allah and Shulchan Aruch, when you wake up in the morning, God, you should imagine that God is waiting for you, because He says, "Wow, you're up, you're ready to go. You're ready to go to fulfill my job. Baruch Hashem, wake up, jump out of bed." Why? Because the day has started. The job has started. The mission has started. I don't know if you like the word job. The mission has started. The mission has started. So I can say the word job, people get oive. So the mission has started. What a great mission. What a great schus that I have to fulfill the mission of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Eibishter is so happy, and I'm going to be happy, because Baruch Hashem, we can go together and do this mission of the purpose of the whole creation of this world. And hopefully you're doing it with free choice. You're simply doing, because when you do something out of force, that's again, okay, you're doing it, but you're doing it out of force. So now you're like the lower levels of inanimate or vegetation. You're doing it. Beautiful rocks, the beautiful trees, beautiful. But when we do it with the godly soul, even higher than the animalistic soul, we do it because we see the greatness. We comprehend the greatness because we learned about it. We comprehend it. We realize, even though it's very deep and there's many levels to it and there's higher things that we don't even know, but here I can have a concept of comprehension. Even in faith, I have a comprehension in faith. I realize what I gain with my faith. That would be the beauty. That would be the beauty. That's the highest level of kavanah and excitement that a Jew can bring to all his whole life. And then you have me shaddai tiktzara, and then you have the person who doesn't have that capability. He doesn't have the broadness of mind, and he doesn't have that capacity. Leidul is beinu b'dulas Hashem to understand, and he's too limited to know or to reflect on the greatness of the blessed Ein and Seif. And therefore, that person is just incapable for him. Nobody's blaming him, but that's the reality. He doesn't have the broadness of mind, and therefore, automatically, what happens when you don't have the broadness of mind? Then you're missing a concept of Avas Hashem. You cannot have love of God if you don't have the broadness, you don't have the capability of knowledge. Therefore, ultimately, you cannot create a love of God, and therefore, we have a problem. We have a problem with our excitement. We're seemingly unexcited. We can be doing everything right, but unexcited. We're doing it not again with free choice, ultimately. We're doing it because that's what we have to do. And that's great. But it's not, where's the love? Where is the love of God? Where is your love of HaKadosh Baruch? Where's my love of God? Because basically I can't create this love. It cannot be revealed in his heart. And so too the concept of fear of God. I'm far from the awness of God. In my mind, in the fear of God in his heart. So his level of understanding is inadequate to create a palpable spiritual emotion. So since one observance of mitzvahs is contingent on the love of God, and refraining from sin is contingent on the fear of God, how can one who cannot evoke these emotions because of his limited understanding fulfill the mitzvah? What motivates him? What motivates Jews out there? Myself, when I don't have this level, to be able to do everything. Such a person, the Alter Rebbe will say, is motivated by his arousal of his hidden love. Maminim b'nei maminim. Every Jew has a love of God. We're going back to the beginning of Tanya. Every Jew has an ava misuteres, a hidden love of God. Every Jew has a love of God. That's all he needs to do is reveal it. He needs to reveal this love. He might not be able to reveal his intellectual love because he's not intellectually. Doesn't have the intellect capacity. But every Jew has a ava misuteres, a hidden love, the love of God, which is also comprised the aspect of fear hidden in the heart of every Jew. This Alter Rebbe established a long time ago. So even if one cannot arouse this love to a revealed state, we can be feel this love and fear in his heart. He can surely arouse it in his mind so that at that level, he will experience a conscious desire to attach himself to God. And it'll be a desire which he doesn't comprehend. He really cannot put it in words. Why are we doing this? Why do I have this love? I don't know. I just love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we see that in many, many Old Jews. They love God. Many of them don't even know why. Well, they don't know why. And they do, even if they're not doing a lot of things, they're doing certain things, they don't know why. Because they love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're Jews. And we love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We want to do what the Eibishter wants us to do. We want to fulfill what God wants us to fulfill. This desire will lead them to study Torah and fulfilling mitzvahs, since this is the only way for him to realize his wish. That he realizes ultimately he has to do something. As a Jew, he's got to do something. And he picks certain things we do. And we decide that this is going to be it. This is going to be the way we're going to love God, is by doing this mitzvah, by loving Chont on Shabbos, whatever it might be. In this case, his kavanah in Torah study and mitzvahs, his desire to cleave to God, is based on instinct. That's instinct. meaning the innate love of God found in his heart. This level of kavanah, therefore, resembles the soul of an animal. It's instinct. It's instinctual. It's not free choice. It's not something that he created per se in his mind. It's something that he has an instinct. And the truth is, you should realize also that we can have both. We can have in our life both of these levels. Some things that we create instinctively, and something that we create now, something that is instinctively, and something that we create with our mind. And we can have both. A person can create can have a situation with everything he does because of his intellectual motivation, and you have some people that can have everything they do is instinctual, but you can have a mixture of both. You can have also where you do certain things because it's your instinct. You're a Jew. If somebody's going to corner you and they tell you, you're going to push you to the wall, you're going to say, I do because because I'm a Jew. I don't know exactly. This is the way I am. This is what my father did, my grandfather did, I'm doing it. It becomes an instinct. And then some things you say, what do you mean? This is my life. I'm doing it because not just because it's my instinct, because I learned about it. I saw the beauty in it. I'm living its beauty. I understand its beauty. I'm expressing its beauty. That's a whole different world. But both of them are done with kavana. One is kavana of my intellectual kavana. One is kavana that I'm a Jew, which is also an unbelievable kavana. We shouldn't deny that unbelievable concept, which is really a very deep concept. You think about it, you ask a Jew why he's doing something. He says, I'm a Jew. It's a very deep concept because it's something that's so inner to somebody. It's so personal to him that he can't give you an analogy to it. He cannot give you a reason to it. It's just the way it is. Just who I am. And that's true because everybody is that. So it's not even lying to oneself. Truth is, that could be more truthful to many of us, that truth, than all the intellect that we have, because our intellect is very, very limited. So therefore, all the intellect somebody can disprove, but the instinct, you cannot argue with an instinct. That's who I am. I know you can tell me everything you want to tell me. I'm a Jew, and I was born a Jew, and I'm going to die a Jew, and that's what it is. So it's no intellectual argument is going to be able to push off that concept. So in this case, the kavanah in Torah study and in its mitzvahs, his desire to cleave to God is based on instinct, meaning on the inanimate love of God found in his heart. This level of kavanah therefore resembles the soul of an animal whose actions are instinctive, not rational. So we call it again nefesh habahamis, the animal soul. Now we're trying to compare it to an animal. We're not trying to say that it's an animal. It's compared to an animal. It's instinctive. An animal lives on instinct. It doesn't live. It's the way he was born. That's the way he's created. And that's the way he's going to be. So in the Alter Rebbe's words, actually, when a Jew remembers, he recalls, I'm a Jew. And what means a Jew? I have a natural hidden love in my heart of God. I have a natural hidden love of God. And he brings it out. See, that's why we have to help Jews reveal their essence. We have to help Jews. We have to help ourselves, and we have to help other Jews to help them simply to bring out their Ava Misuteres. And then the rest is history, as they say. You help a Jew, you know a Jew out there, and you know that he's a Jew and he's not doing anything Jewish, and you help him reveal that neshama, go there and put him on tefillin and bring him a matzah, whatever it might be. Give him something, give him that bridge, give him that capability to reveal his Ava. The rest will be done. You don't have to do anything more. The rest will be done on its own. Mitzvah gereres mitzvah, and the soul will awaken. And once the soul awakens within myself and within another Jew, then everything works out. Then everything goes. And that's the way it is. So that his will and his mind. So therefore, ultimately, that's what the Alter Rebbe makes sure over here to say that if I say, okay, you know what, I have a love of God, and therefore I'm going to eat matzah, right? Why would I go and eat matzah? not the most tastiest food in the world, and because that's what a Jew does. So that's why I do it, and that's the truth. That's the emes. It's not even lying. It's the emes. The emes is that I need to eat matzah, and the emes is that my soul wants matzah on Pesach, doesn't want anything else, and that's what the emes is. So it's not even a lie. You might think that it's not your intellectual truth, but it is a truth. Whether it's your intellectual truth or not, like the truth. The truth is not based on what your intellect is. Your truth is based on what is the truth. So the Avim Sateres, my hidden love, reveals what the truth is. And the truth is, whether I comprehend the beauty of this mitzvah, whether I don't comprehend the beauty of this mitzvah, it's important to me, this mitzvah. This mitzvah is important to me. That's the truth. So that the will of his mind and the recesses of his heart should approve and consent with complete willingness and perfect sincerity. Limser Nasha, and therefore you find that Jews throughout history were moiser nefesh on almost every mitzvah in the Torah. They were moiser nefesh. It was a great mesiras nefesh for Jews to keep Pesach. Baruch Hashem, today it's much easier. Many years ago, every mitzvah getting matzah, it was a great mesiras nefesh. Was it a mesiras nefesh of a year to do? The poil mamish, in a real reality. Al yichad Hashem, on the connection. You have the stories of the Jews being moiser nefesh in the Holocaust, having matzah, even in the concentration camps. You have those stories, eating matzah. You have the story of a young girl that afterwards came out of captivity and said that she kept Pesach in the tunnels of Gaza. That is mesiras nefesh, not a religious girl. She's a Yiddish girl. She's a Jew, and she understood that she needs to do that. That's it. So you can imagine the mesiras nefesh that she had, the little pita that she got there, and she didn't eat it on Pesach. Why would she do that? Because she's a Yid, and that's the emes. That's her true emes. Her true emes is she's a Jew, and she couldn't eat chametz on Pesach. She can't eat chametz on Pesach, and she's ready to go mesiras nefesh for that concept. She's ready to go on self-sacrifice in a concept. And why does she do that? Whether she compares or not, she's doing it because she's connecting her godly soul the garments of this godly soul to unite them with the unity of God. Why do I want to unite them with the unity of God? Shurotza and Alien, because that was the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's higher than wisdom. That's why we do things that are above understanding. Because we do it and we think we understand whatever we understand because it's the true will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eibishter in his will said a Jew shouldn't eat chametz on Pesach. So therefore we don't eat chametz on Pesach. So even if we don't comprehend all the deeper contemplations of what chametz is and how it affects our psyche and how it affects our soul, we do it because Pashit, we love the Eibishter and we want to connect to God. So therefore we cannot eat chametz on Pesach. Simply can't. Can't do it. Because we want to connect to God. How is it possible for us to connect to God in these coming 8 days of Pesach if we're going to eat chametz? Chas v'shalom. Because we want to connect to God. We want to unite. That's really the whole reason. The whole reason, not because God commanded us. The whole reason is because we want a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We want this relationship with God. And this relationship is through this mitzvah. Whether it's the mitzvah of eating matzah, or whether it's the mitzvah of not eating chametz on Pesach. Shehur Tzotz Alien, which this ratzin, the will of God of not eating chametz on Pesach. This ratzin, this will, why did God had this will? That he doesn't want that a yid should eat chametz on Pesach. Meluvish b'talmud Torah b'kiyam mitzvah is all clothed into this mitzvah of not eating chametz. Is brought down in the study of Torah, and informing that's all. That's the whole point. So the real, and that is the real kavanah. That is the essence of the thought. There's many deep levels of that concept, but a simple concept. I want to connect to God. I want to have a relationship with God. And therefore, God says, don't eat chametz on Pesach. Eat matzah on Pesach. That's the way I connect to God. That's a relationship. It's like that between humans. If I ask you, please don't do something, by not doing it, you create a relationship with me. If you're going to do it, I say, then you're not, then you'll go on your own, I go on my own. And that's the whole point. That is the whole concept. So like God, like Matrixism that undergoes, that one undergoes out of love of God, studying Torah and mitzvahs is also unites the soul with God. It's not only through the concept of self-sacrifice. It's through a mitzvah. I don't need to come to self-sacrifice to show my connection to God. I come to connection to God through doing a mitzvah. Therefore, one arousal of his natural love of God to the point where he's prepared to offer his life for God will motivate him to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. So therefore, if I can reveal my neshama, if I can reveal my hidden soul, my hidden love of God, which is a revelation of my neshama, then that alone is an unbelievable thing. And also fear of God is involved in this concept. The Kabbalah, Malchus, the concept of the positive and the negative are all connected to this concept, because I'm going to love God, I want to connect to God, and I don't want to break the connection, because the breaking of the connection is not connected. So thus, like I want to be connected, I don't want to be disconnected. They go together, because disconnection is not connection. So they go together. That's why Av and Yira should go together. Love and fear of God should go together. I love God, and if I don't want to disconnect from Him. And I don't want to disconnect from Him. I want to connect to Him. So they both come together as one concept. So therefore, I'm going to do a mitzvah to connect to God, and I'm not going to do an aveda to not disconnect from God. Why should I want to rebel against God? Why should I want to do something against God? And this again, this is very important, at least to me, that I'm not a tzaddik and I am not such a great sage that I can reveal great hidden things in my mind, but I can reveal this truth, that I'm a Jew and I have a love of God and I have a desire to connect to God and I have a desire not to disconnect from Him. And therefore, I go away from bad, I say tov, and I try to do good. And my whole life is surrounded around that. Because I want a connection to God. The more I do good, the more I'm connected. The more I stop doing bad, the more I'm less disconnected. With this ava, with this hidden concept that I reveal, I learn and I daven and I bless neighbors. I do everything. Why? Because I love God. And therefore, I want, again, I use the word, keep on using the word relationship. I want a relationship with the Eibishter. That's it. I want this relationship. I don't want this relationship in my mind. I don't want this relationship in my heart. I want this relationship in my mouth. I want this relationship in my whole body. And I want this relationship in the way I walk. And I want this relationship where I talk. And I want this relationship where I eat. I want a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu 24/7. And I don't want to walk away from this relationship. 24/7. So you should know this kavanah. This is still this kavanah. It's an unbelievable kavanah, but it's like the nishmas of a chai. It's an instinct. It's an instant kavanah. It's not connection to true intellect and freedom. Because I'm doing instinctually. If you're going to ask me why I'm doing it, I'm saying I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because this is the way I do. I'm a Jew, and that's what a Jew does. So v'chol mideisav and all his emotions, like a person who's feared from something that harms him. And he loves things he loves things that make him happy. It's a nature, it's an instinct concept And it's not totally from his intelligence and his understanding of the thing. So too, so too, by the way of an example, are the natural love and fear of God that's in every Jew. They too are not a product of intellect or in choice. It's basically you were born a Jew, and that's it. And that's who you are. You know that. It's the inheritance of our fathers. Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rachel, Rachel, and Leah. We are the offsprings of this unbelievable people, and therefore we're Jews. It's a natural instinct in our soul. Kiniska Leil, as mentioned above. So the Alter Rebbe explained that the patriarch bequeathed to the descendants an eternal inheritance, a divine soul, with an instinct love of fear of God, because this love is merely instinctive in nature. Its function as motivating kavana for the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs is likened to the soul of an animal. Is the Yud K. To summarize, both the performance and kavana of a mitzvah are divided into two categories. The two levels in performance, the body of the mitzvah, are analogous to the two class of the body of creatures, inanimate beings and plants. They are A, mitzvah performed with action, and B, mitzvahs performed through speech and thought. And then you have two levels of kavana, the soul of the mitzvah, corresponding to the two classes of the soul, creatures of animal and man. They are the kavana generated by one's intellect, contemplation in God's, the greatness of God, and the kavana, the thought, the kavana, the intention that arises from one when one reveals his natural self, when he reveals his ava miseteres, his true nature, and you can accomplish that through that aspect. And that is the way the Alter Rebbe explained the concept of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the name of God, the way it ultimately comes into the human being, his Yud, which is symbolic to kavana of his free choice, his intellectual kavana, that's a connect to chachma and his bina, is the concept of the second level of kind of the hey, is the way that it comes from the instinct of a person who he truly is, and ultimately it comes down into his dibur, the vav, and then into his action, the final hey of the name of God. And that completes the Tanya, that completes the 38th chapter of Tanya, and it completes the Tanya for today. Today is the 6th day of the month, which is chapter 35 to chapter 38. If you do those 4 chapters, you do the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes in Yom Yom for today, the Rebbe writes, experience has shown that with less speculation, but work with orderliness and firmness, and according to pleasantness of the Torah, with the right hand brings close and the left hand rejects, one is certain to achieve results, especially in matters concerning the fundamental of our religion. That's it. The more we do with commitment, the more we'll be successful. I wish you all a wonderful and beautiful Shabbos. And Amir Shem, I hope you will do the chitas tomorrow by yourselves. And we'll meet in Amir Shem on Sunday. Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll meet in Amir Shem on Sunday. We will continue to learn together the chitas of the day. Have a wonderful and beautiful Shabbos. Amir Shem on Sunday at 8 o'clock. We'll come together. Have a beautiful Shabbos.